good evening. I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, July 24th Regional Planning Commission meeting. And can we start with roll call, please?
Frank Peterson.
Here.
James Fewens. Absent. Diane Vanderwell.
Here.
James Barnes.
Here.
Sarah Chavilicek.
Here.
Larry Chesney.
Present.
Kathleen Taylor. Absent. Mark Johnson. Absent. And Peter Gower.
Here.
Holding down the fort for Steve.
I know. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2, election of officers and election of chair.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I nominate Commissioner Chavilicek for chair.
Commissioner Chesney, second.
Excellent. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right.
I guess I don't get to oppose, right?
No, you do not. And just a point of procedure. So although Commissioner Chavilicek is chair now, I'll have the pleasure of continuing on to run the meeting
Tonight.
for tonight. And then I'll hand over the gavel to her next time. So we'll move on to item number 2B, election of vice chair.
To the chair, Commissioner Chesney would like to nominate Commissioner Vanderwell as the vice chair.
Okay, excellent.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
Second time around.
Back around.
You're going to be like Kevin pretty soon.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to item 3 then, salute to the flag, and we'll ask our new chairwoman, Commissioner Chavilicek, to lead us.
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and justice for all.
Sorry. Okay, wait. Nice work. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda for item number 4. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Chesney, second.
Commissioner Vanderwell beat you to it.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, great. We'll move on to item 5, approval of the minutes from our July 10th, 2019 meeting.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Chesney, Commissioner Peterson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Commissioner Gower, I abstain. I was not there. Move on to item number 6, public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We have none.
Okay. Anyone wishing to make a public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 7, business of the day, presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan update. Lauren, welcome.
I don't know if that was, there we go. Okay. All right, so this agenda item discusses the draft 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. And just to provide a brief overview of what we'll be talking about tonight. So we're going to go through the version 2 of the policies. We're going to walk through each of those policy sections. I will identify the major changes from the first version of the policies that you have seen. Those were provided back in February. And then the second version of those policies and kind of what those major shifts were. There'll be some room for RPC discussion and questions after each section of policy. And then the discussion will be captured and utilized tonight to draft, ideally, the final version or version 3 of the draft policies. We are also going to unveil the draft 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. All right, so again, we have those 5 policy sections. We considered all of the written and verbal comments we received on version 1 of the policies and worked through those polarizing items to create version 2 of the policies. We've also met with every RPC member on this topic, but we really wanted to provide the space in a public meeting for the RPC to discuss these items together. All right, and again, so for each policy element, I'm going to go through the major shifts in that section, again, from version 1 to version 2. This isn't inclusive of all of the changes that were made. There are some obviously small typographical type errors or minor clarification changes, but I'm just going to talk about those major shifts. Also, the working group received draft version 2 of the policies beginning on June 20th, and we've been regularly meeting to discuss these policies. If you remember from version 1 of the policies, we had that long list of the polarizing items that we attempted to solve with version 2 of these policies. As anticipated, there are a few, not nearly as many, but a few items that still need some resolve that we are working through with the working group, and I'm going to touch on each of them as they relate to each policy section. There are also some small, again, grammatical errors or some clarification pieces. I'm not going to touch on those ones, but those bigger kind of pieces. And then a quick caveat, we have not gone through every single policy section with the working group. We've gone through almost all of them, but not every single one, so this is not going to be kind of everything that we've talked about with the working group yet. All right, so let's start with population growth. For population growth, we heard that the policies included, from version 1, the policies included a lot of methodological pieces and a lot of that technical information. So we attempted to ameliorate that by placing a lot of that information into the appendix of the plan and really clean up those policies and tighten them up a bit. We also removed the specific TMSA limiter from this section of policy. A policy still exists talking about expansions for the TMSA, but it was moved more appropriately to the regional form section. And that's actually all I have for population growth. There weren't any major shifts in terms of the working group discussions at this point. So I'm happy to take any questions on this piece or any discussion pieces for feedback.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Commissioners, feedback on the population growth component of the draft plan. Okay, seeing none. Carry
All
on.
right, moving on to regional form. So with regards to regional form, we have the regional land designations, and there have been some amendments to this structure in version 2 of the policies. We simplified the core area, so there used to be those 3 different core areas. We have now 1, the mixed-use core, and we refined the areas outside of that core. So now we have Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and then the rural area. Also, with regard to the rural area, the working group expressed more interest in maintaining the 5-acre parcel minimum size in the rural area instead of that 1 unit per 40 overall acres in terms of the density out in that area. Also, the criteria to amend regional land designations was also tightened. We heard it was a little bit too broad and not quite specific enough, so we worked on that piece. And this was also a comment we heard regarding the rural development area, which you may remember allows for some small areas in the rural area to be clustered in terms of density. With that, we clarified some of that language and provided some more specificity on it. We also heard that the compatibility factors in regional form at the end of regional form, it's that last policy, were a little bit too broad, so we worked to alter that policy. So as stated earlier, we've been working with the working group through this version of the policies, and a couple items have popped with regards to regional form. The first is the discussion on non-residential requirements, including floor area ratio provisions in regional form in that density and intensity table. A potential path forward that we have recognized is including some non-residential requirements in the table in policy RF3. So right now, that table discusses specifically density, so talking about kind of that non-residential component. The next item is additional flexibility requested with regards to alternative density usage. The path forward we identified with that one could be including additional alternative density language to encompass things like historic areas or adaptive reuse and also neighborhood stability in cases that we'd want to use alternative density provisions. So that's what I have for regional form.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Commissioners, feedback for Lauren on regional form. Questions? Commissioner Chvilcek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you just encapsulate the previous slide where you talked about non-residential development? So if you could just recapture that for me okay, addressing non-residential potential, including non-residential. Okay, so this is, you have captured some of the things that we discussed on these tables. Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah. So we only had that kind of density specific really about residential, so it was expanding that a little bit.
Perfect, thank you.
Good clarification, thank you. Other questions, feedback? Nope. Okay, carry on.
All right, so with regard to public facilities and services, there were major shifts included really tightening up that facility and service standards table. This was based on a lot of work with the working group and some discussions we had, including meetings with the local government engineering staff. We heard that the public infrastructure investment plan language was a little bit too specific, so we actually broadened that out a bit. This is still going to allow for the development of the PIP and also will allow for the scoping of the PIP to occur in conjunction when that task is undertaken. We also provided for more clarity on investment priorities as they relate to those regional land designations. And lastly, we included clarifying language regarding the undergrounding of transmission facilities and the Regional Planning Governing Board's ability to provide a recommendation to the PUC for the allocation of costs that are associated with undergrounding. With regard to working group discussions, there were concerns over the usage and implementation of fiscal impact analysis, as it often includes items that regional planning is not set up to look at, like police and fire, and often describes revenues and taxing sources and distribution. The potential path forward for that suggests not really using those fiscal impact analysis and that kind of specificity that goes along with it, but more about ensuring that sufficient facility and service provisioning and adequate funding sources are in place, and that the impacts to other facilities and services are also reviewed. This still gets at the heart of what NRS really requires us to do, which is what we are able to show public facilities and services necessary to support development are made and available to satisfy the requirements created by that development. So it still allows for us to do what we need to do in terms of the mandate, but it's not as specific as fiscal impact analysis. And that was all I had for public facilities and services.
Thanks, Lauren. Questions, feedback on that section? No? Okay. Carry on.
All right, for natural resources, major shifts included collapsing the mapping exercise and the natural resources plan together, as we want to ensure that we have gone through this process to actually develop the map. So it's just bringing those two into one policy. We also introduced a policy regarding sustainability and climate change. And overall, we heard that the natural resource policies were a little bit too broad, so we made them a bit more specific regarding the management of natural resources. We also included some additional air quality management strategies. With regards to working group discussions, there were concerns over the interpretation of what's considered open space and how that will be implemented. We're working to better define or describe what that means in the context of regional policies. For reference, our current definition explains open space as properties with free and legal public access that are generally in a natural state. So we're trying to work to better define kind of what it means in terms of the policies. And that is all I have for natural resources.
Feedback, questions on natural resource section? All right, seeing none. Carry on, Lauren.
All right, this is the last section. So for regional coordination, major shifts included providing more clarity for sphere of influence amendments, collapsing the Truckee Meadows annual report policy with another policy that discussed tracking of certain items. Those items are really very close, so we put them into one policy to make it make more sense. And rearranging some of the policy orders, so you might get a little bit confused. Things are in a little bit of different order, but they're still all there. We actually haven't gone through this section yet with the working group, so I don't have any items for that to address.
Okay, great, thanks. Comments, feedback on regional coordination section? No? Okay.
All right, so this was going to bring us to the big reveal. Unfortunately, our printer is taking quite a bit of time to print out the draft plans that we had for you. They were supposed to be at your seats, but the presentation's going a little bit quicker too. So if Jeremy shows up, he will have them. If not, we will absolutely send them out via email to all of the planning commissioners because we have the draft 2019 regional plan ready for your review. So to be clear, we don't expect any discussion on this item particularly tonight. We really wanted to just provide it to you and briefly touch on the items that you're going to be able to find in the draft plan. So with any plan, there's introduction material, acknowledgements, how to use the document, navigating the document, who is TMRPA. And then we have chapter 1, which is setting the stage. You're going to find some information in there, such as regional planning in the Truckee Meadows and how we develop the regional plan. Chapter 1 is then followed by a short interlude regarding the history of development. There's some information and some statistics to that nature in that section. There's also some discussion on the oral history project that we took under. Chapter 2, entitled Regional Vision for Growth, contains information on goals, scenario planning, and the tie to the desired regional form. Chapter 2 is followed by another short interlude where you can find a plethora of data and metrics regarding scenario planning exercise that we undertook. Chapter 3 is the implementation of that regional vision, which contains all of the policies that we've been discussing, along with narratives describing what the policy intent was and what we're trying to do. Then the plan wraps up with the moving forward section, followed by some appendices, which has additional information that's generally referenced in the plan. All right, so in terms of next steps, so we anticipate to begin crafting version 3 of the policies, which we anticipate will be that final version of the policies that'll be included into subsequent iterations of the draft plan as they come out. We'll also be providing the working group with a draft of the 2019 plan tomorrow. At this point, we anticipate the initial discussion of this plan with this commission at your next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting, which is August 14th. The Regional Planning Governing Board will also be provided with the plan, and we anticipate that at the end of August, the Governing Board and the Planning Commission will hopefully give a thumbs up on providing that draft to the public for review. We'll then have additional meetings with the public, stakeholders, and other interested parties, which is really a key component of really starting that adoption process. Finally, we're still shooting for adoption in September. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions or feedback or suggestions that you have.
Commissioner Peterson.
You might help me out, catch up a little bit on this. When all this update is done and the final drafts are approved, then it's up to this commission to submit it to the regional governing bodies, is that not?
To the Regional Planning Governing Board, yes.
The other thing I have then, I have another question. Have all the planning departments of the three,
You didn't have your mic on.
But now you are. No, it's on now.
is it?
Yep.
Have all the three planning departments of the three entities seen these updates and drafts to present?
In terms of the draft plan, no, we anticipate having the Planning Commission and the Governing Board saying, yes, this is a plan that we want to go out to those entities and to the public. So at that point, we will be bringing those to the larger groups of the local governing bodies, yes.
Yeah,
Chair Gallagher.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to be clear, the working group, or planning departments, as you describe, received the draft policies that we just talked about, draft 2. They received those on June 20th, and we have been meeting and discussing those since then. They will be receiving their copies of the draft regional plan tomorrow, which is our scheduled meeting date with them. And so I think that answers the questions you're looking for.
Pretty much so. What I'm looking for, will you be looking for consensus from all three of these?
I think that is a conversation, well, so the responsibility, let's back up a little bit. The responsibility for the regional plan is, in the creation of it, is with the Regional Planning Commission, okay? And so we have been working, obviously, very hard in conjunction with the jurisdictions and affected entities. I see Western Regional Water Commission out there, to bring you a draft, and that's part of the reason that we've been meeting and going over these policies as often as we have. It is up to the Regional Planning Commission to make a decision regarding the policies that, and the draft that moves forward to the Regional Planning Governing Board. So I'm going to actually say the conversation is the Regional Planning Commission looking for consensus?
Well, my concern is this, is if we sent this to the governing board and they don't have their planning departments in full agreement with it, what chance have we got for them to okay it?
Mr. Chair, if I may. Certainly, we are meeting with the members of the planning departments in our regional plan update working group, which is happening at this point in time weekly. So there's ample opportunity for conversation around the draft policies that are out there. I think the point that you raise is a fine one, and I would encourage the commission to discuss it.
Commissioner Chivilcek.
Thank you. First off, I think the reason you didn't get a lot of questions this evening speaks highly to how engaged planning staff has been with members of this commission to break us into small groups, to answer questions, to dive deeply, and I truly, truly appreciate that. Additionally, I mean, regional planning staff has done that. Washoe County planning staff has met with Washoe County planning commissioners to do the same activity and same action to get our feedback and such, and talking about the process of the working group. So I feel that the action has been very transparent and very thoughtful. And I've been grateful to all the planning staffs that I interact with for that opportunity to share concerns, to share, to have that open dialogue. So that has been extremely positive. And I take seriously this commission's job as we are the arbiters of this plan. And that is our job. So we take that job seriously.
Good points, thank you. Other comments, questions, feedback? Before we leave this agenda item, I realized I didn't ask for public comment, so I want to make sure that we cover that.
Have none.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wishing to make a comment on this item? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Lauren. Great job, staff, for putting that together, and the working group. I know you guys have been putting in a lot of time working with regional staff on that, so appreciate that from the commission's perspective. So we will move on then to item 8, reports and members and directors' reports.
Mr. Chair, I think I'm on. So your next meeting is August 14th, and we have also discussed previously at your last meeting, hosting a meeting on August 20th as well. I believe that's actually already scheduled on your calendars, and that's all I have to report today.
Okay, thanks very much. 8B, legal counsel report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to report today.
Okay. Move on then to item number 9, requests for future agenda items. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 10, public comment.
We have none.
All right, we're 3 for 3 there. Written correspondence.
There is none.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Chairman,
Commissioner Chesney?
move to adjourn.
Okay. Commissioner Vanderbilt with a second. All those in favor? Good night.